Hello and welcome to the press conference for Maps to the Stars. A few notes before we begin. This press conference will be streamed live at www.tiff.net, and still photographs will be made available on the TIFF media site. There are volunteers with microphones in the room to assist you with your questions. Please remember to identify yourself and your media outlet. Please note, no photography is permitted during this press conference. Only the pre-approved wire services may take photographs, and we ask that you do so from the first row back. If you could take a moment to turn your cell phones to silent. Our moderator for today is Henri Béhar, and it is now my pleasure to welcome the director, producer, screenwriter, and cast for Maps to the Stars. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the press conference for Maps to the Stars. And with us today, starting from my far left, your far right, producer Martin Katz and scriptwriter Bruce Wagner. As you may know, the film is based on a script that Mr. Wagner wrote, and which was based on his experience as a limo driver, which is a perfect segue to the gentleman who plays Jerome, the limo driver, Mr. Robert Pattinson. The film is also about many things, but also about families. So first family, mother and daughter, two actresses, Sarah Gadon and Julianne Moore. Also another family, more trouble than you may imagine. As the guru healer to the stars, the family is named Weiss, Mr. John Cusack. The mother, who is a manager, Miss Olivia Williams, she's the manager of her son, their son, played by Evan Bird, child actor. And the question is first addressed to you, Mr. Wagner. How much of your limo driver experience in LA did you use in this script? And B, why did it take you so long to start working with David Cronenberg?
Let's see. In terms of driving a limousine, you know, I've said that I drove an ambulance as well when I was younger, and there was something quite similar between driving an ambulance with people in the car that were either dying or thought they were, and with those driving those who were either famous who thought they were, you know. And so, I mean, how much truth is there in terms of what happens in Maps as opposed to my own experience? I would say there's a tremendous amount of truth, and yet there's no truth at all about it. In terms of Mr. Cronenberg, you know, he had read some of my books, and when I heard that he might be a fan, I immediately flew to Toronto and began a long stalking relationship with him, which has continued to this day.
Yeah. I found him in my garage this morning. He was fighting off the raccoons, actually.
No, with my mouth around the exhaust pipe of David's Tesla, but there is no exhaust pipe.
You know I drive electric cars that have no exhaust pipes.
That's right.
He tried to commit suicide with running a Tesla electric car. You see he's still alive, more or less.
First question here, go ahead.
Good morning, Bruce Kirkland from the Toronto Sun Media Canada. And obviously the film is about, in some ways, about the sickness of celebrity. And yet I see this gathering, and I know some of you over the years, and I've never seen that sickness manifested in you guys. So I'm curious what your perception of that sickness of celebrity is and why you wanted to tell the story. So I'd love to start with David, Julianne, and anyone else who wants to address that issue.
We keep it hidden, Bruce, even from you. When I went to your wedding, I took a lot of drugs just to keep myself level. You were totally unaware of it. It's it's a collaboration. I think the movie isn't just about celebrity, really. I mean, there are no scenes of paparazzi. There's no red carpet scenes. It's really a lot of it is family drama. And although it's set in Hollywood, yes, and yes, the desperation for identity and recognition is there, and it's highlighted because it's movie making and so on. I think it translates into, it could have been a story about Silicon Valley or Wall Street or any other really intense business that encourages, desperation and ambition and fantasy and deception and all of that stuff. So I think those universals are really pretty prominent. The family stuff is family stuff. Not your family, but other people's. That's my feeling about it. It's not really. I think it's not really just about celebrity per se.
Julianne?
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree. I think the family dynamics are what's most profound about the film, and there are all these people who are desperately seeking some kind of validation in an external way. They're looking to the world at large to validate who they are as human beings, and they're not turning to they don't have any intimate relationships with others. The saddest thing to me about Havana Grande is that she doesn't have any friends. She doesn't have a partner. There's no one in her life that she doesn't pay. So and the one relationship she yearns for, the one thing that seems to have shaped her, and that she wants, the real validation she wants is from her own mother, and she doesn't have that.
Yeah, I always thought of Los Angeles as it was a strange place when I flew there the first time I was a teenager. I made a movie, and I guess I wasn't like Benji, but I was 4 years older than Benji, and they flew me out and they said, well, we need you to go loop. And I said, what's loop? And they go, well, you have to replace the dialogue in the movie. I said, great. And so they flew me out to the Chateau Marmont, and I had like a Who t-shirt on. And I walked into the Chateau Marmont, and Belushi had just died there, some weeks ago. And there was Andre the Giant in a satin jacket with the word hell written on the back. And I sort of thought, all right, this is what this is gonna be, right? And you have no fucking idea what you're getting into when you get into this thing. But it's, as I said, what David said is, I guess it's sort of like Silicon Valley or Washington or any power center, but it can be a really kind of toxic place, and where people, lie, and it's so predatory, and people are so afraid that, it can be comical, but it can be quite vicious.
The thing that was terrifying for me was the conversation with the agent, where she says all the things to comfort the actress as to why she hasn't had a role, and my agent has said all those things to me. And what's even sadder is that I believed them. So to see it all transcribed verbatim by Bruce was a bit of a salutary moment for me.
And then that strange thing where, in California, where you think, well, it better work out here because we've run out of continent. There's nowhere else to go but maybe Alaska. So it has all these frontier con men and predators and carnival barkers, and so, it's a strange constellation of just madness there. And then there's also a lot of really great things when you're outside the business. But if anyone's been to a Christmas party at a Hollywood agency, they know what horror is. I mean, it's very. That's just how I feel. But I might be in the minority.
I really enjoy that.
I get the fear. Yeah. I don't know what to do.
Mr. Pattinson?
Exhaustively covered it. I don't even know what I'd be able to add to it.
That was kind of a career ruiner on my part.
I just want to say I love Hollywood agency parties.
I didn't mean Hollywood agency party. I meant advertising agency party that I went to a lot.
Question from the audience. Question here. Yeah, take the mic.
Winter for Latin America. I have 3 questions related to Julianne Moore. So the movie Maps of the Stars, you got your own star with your own name last year in Hollywood Walk of Fame. So what that means to you compared to winning an award in France this year, and what would it mean to get finally the Oscar?
Oh my goodness.
Nothing beats an award in France, I'm sorry.
You know, I think that for all of us, the Cannes experience was pretty extraordinary. I mean, it was the first time I had seen the film. I was sitting next to David. It's always very exciting to be in Cannes, and it was completely unexpected and thrilling to be honored there, because it is a film festival, as this one is, and I think that when you're in an environment where films are being celebrated and we're all kind of, you know, all your peers are there, it was a really wonderful honor. But I have to say, the real reward, and not to be like, you know, sappy about it, but the real reward is always the work. And I had an extraordinary experience on this movie, and a wonderful experience with David and with Bruce and with this incredible cast. And it was so fun to come to work every day in Toronto. So that's really what I take away from all of it.
To get your star with your own name, how was it? Do you go back?
I haven't been back. I live in New York. You know what was great about it? My children were old enough to be there and to understand what was happening. And then I said, now I don't need a tombstone. There we go. We're done. We saved a little money. Yeah, that's right.
They are going to start burying people under their stars.
That's my request.
And they're going to have a kind of lucite panel in the sidewalk so we can actually see them.
It's kind of like Stalin, right?
Touch screen?
Yeah. Keep you embalmed.
To have the movie
Could be a
screen.
touch screen.
Finally won the Academy Award.
I don't know. I don't think I have an answer for that.
Question over there.
Carrie Roberts from the Next Take on Super Channel. My question is for David, and I'd love for Robert to chime in as well. And it's the casting of Mia Wasikowska as the role of Agatha. Why did you want to cast her? And maybe Robert can maybe talk about his experiences on set with Mia.
What was the last part of that? I didn't hear.
How did you come to choose Mia Wasikowska particularly? And would Robert talk about his experience on the set with Mia?
Yeah. Well, when you're casting, you're looking for someone who's the right person for the role. You know, it's pretty straightforward. In some ways, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it starts with basics. You know, how old is this character, male or female? You know, and then what is the presence on screen? And so I'd been seeing Mia in many movies and really had a lot of respect for what she was doing and thought she was really interesting. And the role requires a certain very strange kind of sort of underground presence, and I just thought she had it, you know, and she's just a wonderful actress who's done a lot of different things. I had complete confidence that she would understand this character, especially after talking to her. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really.
Well, most of the acting is sort of as close to a high wire act as I can imagine. There's one character who is perhaps the scariest of them all, both in terms of what the character is and how you may have approached it, and that's the kid.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you read it, and how did you work about it?
The script?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the audition and the whole process.
Oh, the whole process. Well, it's always fun.
Sorry to have called you the kid.
Reading the script was the funnest part, I think. It was hilarious. Just, you know, reading what this kid did and what he's been doing and how he's changing throughout. And I think he's the only character that actually gets better by the end of the film. But he dies, so I don't know.
That's how he gets better, Evan. He dies.
Yeah.
Sometimes dying is the only way to get better.
It cures a lot of ills.
Yeah. And, well, how it happened is I put myself on tape, sent it over to David. David, I guess, said he liked it. Flew to Toronto. I met him. He was wearing gloves. We were sitting in a room that was about 25 degrees. And he said he was sick and he didn't want to transfer the germs. And I don't know.
That's how we got
so that was
cast.
my first impression
I was
of David.
sick. I didn't really, wasn't seeing clearly.
Anyways, so yeah, I just, he gave me pointers. I don't really remember it much. It was a long time ago, but that's what happened.
What kind of
I guess.
pointers?
Sorry?
What kind of pointers?
He said that I'm not sure exactly what he said, but he gave me pointers, and then afterwards he said, "You were great. It was like driving a Ferrari," and that's how it happened. I don't know how to
Where's
answer.
the glove so you can't remember the direction?
That's right.
I wore the glove to leave no fingerprints. But no, Evan, I just thought he was a natural, and I thought he really understood the character, and probably the things that I said were the things that I ended up saying to everybody, which was there's a lot of intensity and I wouldn't call it satire, but let's say satire in the writing and humor, and I didn't want the actors to play any of that. I wanted them to play everything for the most elemental human emotions, and the other stuff would take care of itself because Bruce had built it into the screenplay. So I didn't want them playing that and getting really, because I thought then it could turn into caricature. And so I wanted everybody to be just very real, which is, and the dialogue is just so beautiful. And I think there are so many ways to play it, though. That's probably what I said to Evan, actually. And he could do it, that's the thing. It could be very naturalistic and real.
Now, one aspect of the film, of the characters in the film, are, for lack of a better word, the ghosts that keep appearing. Mother on television, just the whole past. At which point in the work with you, between you and Bruce Wagner, did you decide to emphasize the ghost aspect, the ghost story aspect to the script? If it was there from the beginning or not, I don't know.
It was there from the beginning, but I have a real aversion to ghosts because I don't believe in them. And I think that ghosts are actually a religious concept, because it means that you believe in an afterlife, which I don't. And so I have a problem with ghosts. However, and Bruce did have a scene in his original script in which there were a lot of ghosts of dead children walking along the street at night, seen by Agatha, maybe a hallucination or not. But I thought that that scene I wanted to cut, and did, because I felt that was different from the other scenes of the ghosts, where the ghosts were really memories. I mean, we're all haunted. If you get to a certain age, you're haunted by many people that you know who have died, and you can hear them and you can see them, and sometimes you dream about them. It doesn't mean they're really out there somewhere in some kind of protoplasmic outer space. So for me, I needed, for my just world concept, I needed the ghosts to be clearly memories and fantasies and fantasy projections and so on, and fears sort of realized in a kind of hallucinations. And so that's was my approach to Bruce's. I think Bruce does believe in ghosts.
Absolutely. I'm an old haunt myself. I feel, in many ways, this movie is kind of a fever dream, and it is, in many ways about ghosts. And I do understand and agree with David that those ghosts have to be very specific. But yeah, that is, I live in a haunted world in my head. You know what I mean? So those are, but one has to be very careful, because David was rightfully making Maps to the Stars into a very naturalistic drama. And if we ventured into magical realism or anything that was ostentatiously about phantoms, I think we would have gone off the rails. So, yeah.
Ma'am?
Hi, Suzanne Askoff. Can you hear me? There we go.
Yes.
Suzanne Askoff for the Directors Guild Magazine Montage. I have two questions. One for David to start, please. You say it's a family drama. Fair enough. Why do you set the family drama in Hollywood? Why this context?
Well, I didn't set it there. Of course, Bruce did. And for Bruce, that's his home, and that's where his own family was and is. It's a very intense and very recognizable place to play with the question of identity through images. I mean, actors, here you have Julianne Moore playing an actress whose identity is tied up with her image on a screen, which is then shown to many people, and that's becomes her real self, and she can't relate to her own physical real self and so on. If it wasn't Hollywood and it wasn't about the movie business, you wouldn't get that. You know, I mean, you've seen Wolf of Wall Street. There are some of the same themes that go on there, but it doesn't have that very particularly delicious thing about people desperate to keep being on that screen. And if they disappear from the screen, they don't get work anymore. It's like I've said, it's an existential crisis. They don't exist in a real way. They have ceased to exist. It's kind of a pre-death, you know, death before death. If you disappear from the screen, and it's not really much of an exaggeration. I mean, everybody who's worked in the business knows people who have disappeared, and it really it's a crushingly difficult thing to accept for an actor or actually for anybody who's in the film business to suddenly be disconnected from it.
And your second part?
Is for Julianne. You probably are one of the few international stars who have now worked with a variety of Canadian directors, including Don McKellar, Adam McGowan, and David Cronenberg, and I'm just wondering if maybe you could comment on that.
Did you want me to rank them?
Sure.
I was just kidding. Yeah.
And I taped her saying that.
I consider myself practically Canadian now. I've been coming to the Toronto Film Festival, and I've been coming to Toronto. I had my first job in Toronto in 1986, and have been working here pretty consistently since then, and have had, such an amazing experience in the Canadian film business with all the great actors here and the great filmmakers. And it's funny because my husband, we were talking to Sarah Gadon and her boyfriend about the Canadian film community and how wonderfully interdependent everybody is, and how supportive and how creative and artistic the environment is. And it's really, really impressive, I have to say. My husband was like, hey, maybe we should live in Toronto. But yeah, I'm very, very fortunate to have worked with David Cronenberg and Adam McGowan and Don McKellar and such stellar, amazing visionaries.
Okay, there's a question over there. Who has it? Go ahead.
Good morning,
We'll take just two more. Go ahead.
Good morning, Barbara Dudinska, Slovak News Agency. I have a question for Julianne. Julianne, after talking to you yesterday on the carpet, here I am.
Oh, there, thanks.
You seem like a very nice, down-to-earth person, and I really, really love you and admire your work. Now, in this movie, you're playing a very wild character that I also like. If you're not that well-known and you could do anything in the world, something unexpected or wild, what would it be? Thank you.
Personally?
Yeah.
Or as an actor?
No, personally.
If I could do anything in the world and I weren't well-known, and no one was watching me?
Would you be like an animal, like a lion tamer?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think. I know. I think, what kind of job would I like to have? I don't know. You know what? I think I can't decide. That's probably why I'm an actor. I get to be all these kind of amazing things and have these. Yeah. I could be, if I could be like Bruce, that would be great. If I could write like
you
that.
You wouldn't want to be like Bruce.
No, I would. Yeah, but actually, I think if I could write like that, that would be an amazing and a wonderful skill to have. Yeah.
Okay, the gentleman here.
Or I'm not the gentleman, but
Okay, now go ahead and then pass
Okay.
it on.
I don't know if this is on or not, but sort of talking about what David said about losing your sense of self as an actor in Hollywood, how do you personally sort of avoid that? I mean, this story can be so close to home. How important are your families, your relationships, and those things to avoid that fate? To anyone.
Sarah, you haven't spoken.
I think, yeah.
I live in Toronto, so it's really easy not to lose myself in Hollywood. I just come home.
Yeah, same. Live in Vancouver, so it's pretty chill over there.
The funny thing is that no one up here actually lives in Los Angeles except Bruce.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I live in
Bruce,
Waterloo.
how are you?
I have a place in LA, but I live mostly in Chicago. So,
Leaning on my family and support like that.
yeah, my sister and I, my sister's in the business, but she's in Chicago, and she always goes to LA, and when I'm in LA, I'll go, hey, let's get together. She goes, no, I'm getting back on the evening flight. I'm back in Chicago. She literally flies to the red-eye back. She doesn't really like it that much there.
But I think it's true. I mean, there's no, and one of the things that this film, like I said, what's so sad about this movie is what the lack of actual intimacy in it. And one of the things that I noticed right away was how beautifully David was shooting and how he isolated us all in these separate shots. And occasionally we'd be in two shots, but mostly we were in singles, in these kind of wide, empty singles. And so you got this sort of sense of emotional dislocation because these people are not physically connected. And I think that all of us know that the only way to really have a connection is to have a family and have friends and things that you like to do, and significant others, and that's what makes up a life. And I think that's why this movie is so touching, is that you watching all these people misplace their lives in a way, and really missing an authentic experience.
There's a moment when I've been in LA for long periods of time where you feel, you look in the mirror and go, maybe just a little lift. and I always think with English people, you always tell English people fresh off the boat because they've got horrible toenails. And, there's this thing where you start, your standards start to change and normality is lifted and toenails are naturally burgundy. And that's the moment when you know you have to go home.
Not a turnaround.
There's also that thing.
Very specific.
I think the LA, and I guess this is, not specific to Los Angeles, but I think Wall Street has decided that the best way to sell things to people is, to a certain teenage demographic. So, I don't know. It seems like it's gotten even more and more youth obsessed. And yet, people don't start to get interesting until they're in their 30s, because we're so stupid in our 20s, at least I was, But I really feel like, a beautiful young woman came up to me at a premiere, and I thought, oh, great. And she goes, you're my mom's favorite actor. And, that was kind of a hard one to take, but, the point was taken is it's like everything's getting younger and younger and younger, and then you see like these models, and you think, I don't know if this is like kiddie porn or like a Cosmo cover. It's like 18-year-olds. So Hollywood just is getting so youth obsessed too. I think there's that element where it doesn't feel like there's room for people who are, at the ripe old age of 40. Yeah.
We'll take the last question. Go ahead.
I have another question for Julianne. Maybe the rest of the cast could add too. But since you're releasing the movie Hunger Games, my question is, what do you think about the Hunger Game of fame in Hollywood, especially with the reality stars?
I kind of like those stories. I think they're kind of cool, big studio movies. At least the politics of them are kind of good.
Yeah, I think he was talking about it in relation to
our movie.
Yeah, but that's why I was trying to make the bridge. I don't. I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting because every time people like to talk about Hollywood and what Hollywood is. Hollywood isn't anything. Hollywood's just a place on the map, and the movie industry is one thing, and the people making things are another thing. And I don't know that there's a there there. One of the things that I said this in Cannes, I love what I do. I love making movies. I like the idea of being in an imaginary world that relates to what we all experience as human beings. And I think that's why we love movies, and that's why we love books, and that's why we love narrative. And we're, you know, in it, we're able to tell stories about who we are, who we want to be, and you know, it's a way of seeing ourselves and knowing ourselves. You know, and I think that's different than this idea about Hollywood and fame and whatever. And oddly, when you pay a lot of attention to it, you make it important, it becomes more important than it is. And so sometimes I prefer not to focus on it, because I feel like that's just something that we don't have to really acknowledge, I hope.
I'm afraid our time is up. Thank you all very much for being here today. Thank you.